Hi, I'm Scott, and I'm aboard the Freedom 40-40 LAXMI, and I'm just going to go through the boat like if I'm looking at it for the first time myself, and I'm going to be critical of critical things, and I'm going to point out nice things, and hopefully you have a really good picture of what this boat is all about. Okay, generally the boat, when you come aboard, looks pretty good. The teak still is a fairly blonde color. There's no discoloration. There's no marks from water coming down or anything like that. When you look at the cushions are clean. I believe they're original, but they're in pretty good shape. No big stains on any of them anywhere on the boat. When you pick things up and look behind, generally everything looks pretty presentable. If I were to be critical of a couple things right off the bat on the boat, the floor up here in the forward section must have leaked at some point from a window or whatever, but that needs to be replaced. So it's a piece of veneered plywood that you can still get this pattern. They're about $120 for a 4x8 sheet, and that could be cut out, used as a template, or pulled out on screws, and a new piece go in. That's one section. The main floor, if you look at it here, actually can be brought back to look pretty good. There is some discoloration in a couple pieces of the teak and holly sole, but if you pick at it, it comes apart nicely, it's smooth, and can be brought back. I don't think you need to replace this. The headliner still is all one color. It looks pretty good in most places. There's a few areas that might be loose, but it's okay and serviceable. This section right here is a little baggy, but I don't know if I'd go and replace it as of yet. This all looks generally pretty good. Up in the V-Berth, there is a section over plywood that can come out with screws. This needs to be redone, and it's probably best just to replace it with something else. But otherwise, the V-Berth sections are all good. They're all removable. There are no big stains on any of the veneer on the side. That all looks good. The cushions up here look good. I know it looks a little cluttered. There's some cockpit cushions and things, which all look decent. They're gray. But all the general cushions are decent. The teak looks good. Everything except for the floor. The engine access on these boats are pretty good. Centerline based, Yanmar. And a recent enough generation that we can get to it. Or get parts for it, rather. So it's a 4-cylinder Yanmar. It's a 3JH TE, so it's a naturally aspirated engine. This is a Seafrost refrigeration pump on here. It also has a 12-volt version, and this is the water cooler for the Seafrost refrigeration, so that's all right here. Your secondary fuel filter is here. Looks like he's replaced the belts fairly recently. They look fairly tight. Let's just take a look at the oil. That's still brown. It's showing a little bit of use. I know they did use the boat once. It's a teeny bit over full, maybe half a quart if that. It's not a hard engine to work on. Pieces of this come out. This whole section comes out. There is a oil filter down there that can be accessed. There's a oil fill here, oil fill here. There is an expansion tank aft. This is another fill for the antifreeze here. The alternator is right here, easy to adjust. We'll run the engine a little bit later. The boat has a Raycor 500 FG, which is really nice. You can peel off the water off the bottom if you had to, and there's no evidence of water in here. The filter itself is changed right here, pretty straightforward. There is a halon system in here. I'm not sure what gas it is, 2016. So that's great. That's the most current gas for the halon. That's easy to get to. There is a stop solenoid down here that's easy to get to. The air filter is here. Hoses generally look okay. There's some nice guards on the hoses. The gear and the flange is down here. You can get to it. Doesn't look like it has a lot of rust on it. Still has some original paint, but it could be treated. The fill for the transmission is also down here. I don't know if it's a Borg 1 or a Hearth, but it is accessible. Stuffing box is down here. It's water injected. It's a bronze unit, looks like an early dripless version. I'm not familiar with it, but it does have a good rubber seal on it, and it seems to be in good shape. Nothing is green or anything, it's not leaking. You get to it by just removing the drawer back and forth. So it is accessible. That was a cold start from not being started for 2 weeks. This is at idle. So let it just, its pressure's come up, so I'm going to go and just rev it up to 1,000 RPM. Right now we're running at about 600 RPM. Increasing throttle. That's about 1,200. 2,000. So that runs pretty well. The aft head is the larger head. It has a separate shower stall that has a door. It has an opening port, and that actually can come up. It has a good headliner, a light in it. It has a very large closet off to the side. Typical household style controls. So it's a good liverboard situation here. The main head itself is pretty spacious. It has a deep sink, a decent locker here, and it has a locker behind the head that goes down. A big port here, stainless steel with screens. Everything has screens on the boat. It's the original head, standard footprint, very easy to replace if you needed to. And just more storage down here. My guess is if there's a head odor problem, it's probably coming from this head and these hoses. I don't really smell it because the boat's been opened, but it's possible that if there is an odor, it's coming from this head. The nav station is pretty much untouched and original. There's still a big blank panel here for adding electronics. Of course, most people have them in the cockpit now, but it is there and hasn't been touched, so you could easily add. But what we have here, we have a fuel gauge, Raymarine ST60 graphic display that'll repeat any of the information on the Sea-Talk network. So depth, knot, speed, heading, water temperature, all that fun stuff. An ICOM M504 that has a distress signal on it. I don't know if that's hooked up or not, probably is. This is a very good radio. I have one of these myself. It's very powerful. Then here we have the main electrical panel with the DC side here, and then the AC side there, and a generator control here, an inverter control, and this is for the power on to turn on the anchor windlass. There's also a bilge pump here and a 110 outlet. The generator has 108.2 hours on it, 108 northern lights. Chart table is a standard chart table size for chart kits. Not quite Admiralty size, but it could be used with folded, but that's handy for that. Underneath here are where all the batteries are. My guess is the batteries aren't marked how old they are, and I'd have to run a test on them. They're AGM. They're a good brand. Full River brand. And there are 3 4Ds in here. But again, we have to test them to see how good they are. Here's your air conditioning. And that has a compressor right here and the ventilator here. The chart table has a backrest. It comes out. So it's easy to sit here and be able to do what you need to do. I guess realistically on a lot of boats today that you're not doing too much navigation from down below. You can, of course, but it's really the right angle and the right angle for your arms for a laptop. You could also mount a 22-inch monitor, 21 or 22-inch monitor in here, and put a small PC or a Mac Mini or something like that, or even larger in this cabinet, and have full power here. And since it has an inverter, it has a DC outlet, and it has a generator, there's no reason why you can't use this as a home office. Typical of the Freedom 40/40s, an L-shaped settee, and this table comes down, and there are poles here that go underneath, and it can flip out to be a double. So it's a rather large table. It's cherry. The entire interior is cherry, and kind of looks like teak, but it's cherry. I might have said teak before, but it's cherry. So it's a big table, either full or half, with a locker behind, and screw-in style poles. The galley is a decent sized galley for the boat. It has close to centerline, but not quite centerline sinks, and there's two deep ones here. This is probably an icebox pump, I'm not sure, but there is pressure, hot and cold water. Good counter space, decent lockers for pots and pans. This is a very deep one. It goes all the way to the engine. So pots and pans are here. And then we have a separate freezer and refrigerator for the sea frost system, and there are multiple cold plates, one for the fridge, two for the freezer. And that's Sea Frost. They're still in business. They're in New Hampshire, and they can service it. We have a 3-burner Force 10 stove, oven, and broiler. And this is the kind that gimbals and has a door that retracts inside, which is nice for a small area. There's a broiler here, which is really good. Generally, the condition of the stove looks okay. The grill could be cleaned up a little bit, I think, but for the most part, it's in good shape. The way that these work is this lifts up, and these pieces all come out for easy cleaning. Now, you might say, well, geez, I want a 4-burner, but the issue is with the 4-burners that there's no way that you can put a lot of pots on here. You put your big pot in the back and your 2 small ones in the front. With a 4-burner, you have to have all 4 small pots. Little simple microwave here. It's a GE. I haven't tested it, but they're only $99 at a big box store. Good cabinet space behind. So all your dishes and things go in here. I'm not gonna, there we go. Wine glasses fit on the top, and more storage here. Same kind of thing. The Sea Frost controls are up there on the bulkhead. Nothing looks marred or damaged. There's no burn marks. There is a water damage mark right here. Small, but I think you could peel that off and fix it. Probably came from the window being open. There's also bottom access to the refrigerator down here that's separate from the rest of the area. There's a shelf inside, so you can actually have, say for example, beverages at the bottom and stuff on the top like lettuce and so forth, and they're not going to touch each other. There is a big trash can here that's just right there, and there's some storage for cleaners underneath the sink. The aft cabin has full standing headroom. I'm 6'2", and I still have a couple inches above me. And there's an overhead hatch, and there's an opening port on the side, an opening port aft that's underneath the Dodger, and they have screens. A decent hanging locker here. It's lined with cedar, which is a neat touch, and more storage on the sides. Up here, a pretty deep locker, shelf, and the way that this boat is set up is you sleep athwartships, and it's probably the size of between a full and a queen, so it's pretty decent. Easy to get in and get out of. There's full sitting headroom in here, a big port right here with a screen, hella fans, decent headliner. There is a air conditioning vent back in the corner. The sole looks good. Generally the aft cabin's in good shape. There is a air conditioning control for the second zone there, and there's storage underneath for things like spare parts or what have you. Now we're going to explore the bilges. For my boat, I'd wipe these all out with Clorox spray, but they're just dirty, but not super dirty. Just the gel coat looks good, but I think it would clean up very quickly. Here we have access to our overboard discharge for our head, probably an intake for the head. They're both shut off, and then our through holes for the Ray Marine system here. I am noticing, though, that the knot meter is just sitting here. So that would be good to test. This could come right out and put that back in. And there's a spare plug here. That should be probably in a plastic bag. But looking underneath, it all could be wiped out in minutes, I think. I don't think it would be very hard to clean this bilge. No real damage here, which is nice. So that's a place you could always look. Oh, and while we're here in this area, I didn't point it out before, but this berth slides out to here, making this more of a double. There's a hinge here and here. This will slide out, chart storage, and you move these cushions out, and there's probably some other cushions that fit in its place. Center bilge, again, like the other bilges, could just be wiped clean. There is a, looks like a Grocco or a Perco filter here for the engine, and that's turned on with a Marilon fitting, and these are the professional Marilon fittings that Tilson Pearson used when they built these boats. So this is easy to get to and clean and check. Goes right to the Yanmar. Then we have some other areas here that are pretty big, and with plastic totes like this, I can't see why you wouldn't store you know, a bunch of canned goods in here. That's kind of unique for a fin keel boat to be able to have deep storage like this. And it's also nice to have a deep bilge, so if you're offshore and you're heeling and you have some water in the bilge, that shipped water that came in, it's not going to be splashing all over the floor because it'll be in the bilge. Here are the through holes for the aft head, so we have an exhaust and an inlet, and just one of the keel bolts here, stainless steel keel bolts, and underneath there are more keel bolts. All the keel bolts are accessible through these limber holes in the side. But again, we have more deep storage here that in plastic totes you could probably store canned goods and other things. So we have a dual anchor roller system, and it looks like we've got a Delta on the starboard side with 5/16 high tensile chain, it looks like to me. But both rollers look like they'll take the new ROCKNAK'S style or Mantis or Manta anchors, which is nice to have. So that could work there. There's a seat up there. One-line system for the Genoa. Again, with this Freedom, it's not a cat boat. It's actually a freestanding spar with a blade for a sail as a sloop. Here we have controls for the windlass, which is a Maxwell. That's right here. It's a horizontal windlass with a gypsy and a capstan, and it looks like it has an override right here. There's a lock down here for the chain, which is nice, and a fairly deep locker for it, so you don't have to play out. Of course, a spare. A good anchor lugger. It's got a roller, pre-roller there, which is nice. The mast itself has a couple dings on it. It looks like it's going into the coating and not into the glass itself. So there's some nicks here, here, and here. And on the other side, up here, there's some nicks as well. It doesn't look like it's getting into the cloth. It looks like it's gel coat damage. So that should be repaired. I can tell that this was all gripped at one time because there's the primer looks like it's gray and it's 545, so this should be repaired with all grip. The running rigging is all, looks like it's all stay set, which is fine for this boat. It's all color coded, which is nice. Everything on the Freedom's led aft. The gooseneck looks good. There's no corrosion on it. It looks like it's in decent shape. It doesn't look like there's any stress cracks on it. The boom looks good. The paint on the boom looks good. So it also has a, looks like a ball spar. It could be ball, like a Untitled style. That looks like it's in decent shape. All the non-steam on the boat looks like it's in decent shape. So the boat doesn't have any cracks in it. The Durade vents could be repainted on the inside. And if you wanted to be tricky, you could paint those a different color. But anyway, those should be repainted on the inside, but the outside stainless looks good. This little granny bar here comes right off of the pins, so you can easily work on that. It's a Harkin Traveler. It's in decent shape. We haven't tested the bearings on it, but they're probably okay. The running rigging on this boat all looks very recently, and it's all been professionally done with splices. Nothing seems to be tied. Lightweight Harkin blocks all look good. The Dodger looks good. The glass looks good. So the Dodger itself is in good shape. The Bimini back here is in good shape. The Freedom 40/40 is a very comfortable boat, ergodynamic-wise, to sit in. I'm sitting very comfortably here. My hand is up here, and I can reach the helm. My elbow is bent, so that even a person shorter than me can reach this wheel. It's easy for me to see forward. I can duck in behind the Dodger just real quick if we're hitting some ship waves. Standing-wise, powering. Again, I'm 6'2", and I easily have a foot or so above the Dodger. So someone maybe 5'7" would still be able to see over the Dodger and easily see through it because the glass is in good shape. You've got your Raymarine C80 up here. Your one-arm Bandit here, pushes for throttle or just gear. It's got a nice Ritchie compass. I think it's a Ritchie compass. Cut. This is actually a Raymarine E80. I mentioned C80 earlier. This is a very good unit. I have one in my boat and I like it. I've been traveled thousands and thousands of miles with it. What I like about these older units, you know, providing they work, and I think this one does, is that the buttons on it are all weather sealed, and it's a very tough feeling unit. You could hook up to this AIS, depth sounders, radar, all these things interface with this. You could also repeat your autopilot information as long as you do the update, and your depth sounder and your knot meter all will appear here. This is your autopilot, all easy to get to. Below decks autopilot, that is a good autopilot. I have the same one, it's fantastic. So it's a good unit, all right here, and again the compass is right here. Obviously it's really powered in. Typical of boats this size with aft cabins, we have a deep, very, very far back locker. And here you can see there's some fenders, and it would actually hold 2 people down there. That's how deep this is. It's quite a big bag that's in here. So that's nice storage. The best way to keep things in a locker like this is in bags. This is a removable helmsman seat that comes out, slides out, and you can walk straight through. The other side is equally the same as a port starboard or symmetrical sides. They're equally the same. Again, quite large. This one has a, looks like a, you can see parts of the cockpit shower in there, and there is a cockpit shower right here, and that's all easy to service. There is a full-size Yanmar panel there with a pressure gauge, water temperature, engine hours, and the engine hours are 1,606. So we still have 3,000 or 4,000 hours to go before it looks like a lot of hours, so that's really great. Right here are 2 large propane tanks, lockers. There's 1 propane tank, but it's big for 2, and you can put in, I think that's a 10-pound tank with a regulator. And this locker, opposite of the aft cabin, is decent, good shallow locker, but your big lockers are aft. Table is permanent, and it just pulls up and makes a double table. Very handy to have. You can have one half up, walk around the other side, or have a full table, and this is probably where you do most of your meals. This is a Harkin electric winch here, and the controls are here by my foot, in and out. You can do that with your heel, or you can just push it with a button. Everything on this boat is brought back advanced. So everything comes, the sail comes right out of the sail cover, and you don't really have to move forward except to maybe anchor and dock. So here we have ST60s, we have a depth sounder, a wind indicator, and a knot meter. They all sit there, they all do their thing, but they also repeat to the E80. They also repeat to the ST60 graphic display down below. The yaw grip is fairly recent on the boat. It's in decent shape. There are no major scratches. The bottom is painted white, probably vivid. Looks pretty smooth, but I haven't seen the boat out of the water. Big transom to come in over. Stainless steel guardrails. Aluminum tow rail. Generally a very good looking boat. No crazing, no damage. Good looking decks. The dinghy looks to be about a 10-foot Mercury. It's got an inflatable floor, so theoretically you could just deflate the whole thing and put it in one of those lockers. It has an 8 horsepower Mercury 4-stroke on the back, And the oars are still there, fuel tank and the seat.